What's going on, people? Hope everyone's well. You know, I try to be as balanced as I can be nowadays, and some people seem to think that's being disingenuous, but a yin yang was always a symbol that appealed to me from I can't even remember how young I was, very early on. Just, I think it's a beautiful symbol, a yin yang. But even deeper than that, the symbolism of the yin yang, positive and negative, you need to be balanced. You need to have balance. If you're too negative, you'll look at the world negatively. If you're too positive, the world will exploit you. So you need to have balance, and that's all I ever try to do nowadays. I saw a very interesting quote from Sophie Kumpen, who's Max Verstappen's mother. Obviously, she doesn't go by Verstappen because she's no longer with Jos Verstappen, Max's father. So I saw a very interesting quote, and it explains a lot about Max, but then it also explains what it takes to be the best at the same time. But anyway, this is the quote. I thought it was fake at first, but then I found it online. So Sophie says, "My son is better than me because he survived his father," which is a powerful quote in itself, right? Obviously, I'm not going to get into the rest of it, but that's what she said. You know what's crazy is she was a racing driver too, and apparently she was incredible, but she gave it up to raise her family. Imagine coming from two. Obviously, we know Jos didn't really do much in Formula One, but he was still a racer, and his mum was a racer too. It was almost written in the stars, wasn't it? Now, even Max Verstappen himself knows where he gets his calmness from. He was asked the question, where do you get your composure and restraint? My mum. Definitely not my dad, right? And we've seen that. We've seen when Max crashed in Saudi Arabia 2021. Jos was about to break that table in two, you know? But I also want to give Jos his credit somewhat in this video. I know some people it's going to be hard to hear what I'm going to say, but you understand the justification soon. So here's the quote here. "There were many nights when I lay in bed crying," this is Sophie speaking, not Max, "out of sadness for the child I missed so much. I was often very afraid that I would lose him." Wow. So Jos was a drill sergeant, an absolute drill sergeant. He whipped Max Verstappen into shape to be cold, to be emotionless, but to win. Yeah? Forget everything else, son. Just win. And that's why, I honestly believe that's why Max Verstappen is the way he is. Just no emotion apart from, like he said, his daughter. Doesn't really care. He's just there to win. Now, obviously, when we heard about Max Verstappen being left at a petrol station when he was a kid, effectively, because he lost the race and Jos was pissed, we all jumped up and down and said that's wrong, that's disgusting, it's child abuse. But my dad made me aware that there's a similar scenario, and people weren't saying that about this scenario. And this is what I mean. When someone doesn't like someone, when someone naturally has a bias towards someone, you're going to look at the situation completely differently as you would someone that is favorable or someone that you like, right? Because besides the woman abusing stuff, which is can never be defended, right? As a man, you should never put your hands on a woman, ever, right? Unless she's like a UFC star and she's beating the crap out of you, then yeah, defend yourself, my guy. It's a shame that I shouldn't even laugh. That's a serious thing. You need to defend yourself. Do you know what I mean? But besides that, a man should never put his hands on a woman, ever. Yeah? So that's the thing that befalls Jos, obviously. The thing that you can't defend him for. But this situation here, Jos Verstappen made him walk home after Max Verstappen crashed his car, right? But he didn't walk home. Sophie, his mother, picked him up. But can you imagine the trauma, involved in that moment? Your dad saying, "You know what, get out the car. Get out the car. Like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you not listening to me," so on and so forth. You need to learn. You need to learn a harsh lesson today. And even till this day, I think it's harsh. But I spoke to my dad about it, and he told me about the other situation, the other scenario I'm going to mention. And he was like, "I'm sorry, son. I think he done the right thing." Because even though, yeah, it was probably a traumatic moment for Max when he was young and everything, it made him not want to fail again. It fired him up. It made him never want to be in that situation again. So he will go above and beyond to win, right? It instilled the winning attitude in him. And guess who else done that? Yes, exactly. If you think Yoss is it was child abuse and he's a disgusting parent for doing so, cool. Richard Williams, they even done a movie on him a couple years ago, right? Will Smith played his character. Um, Done the same thing to his daughters, Serena and Venus. Yeah, he did. He did, right? Because they discussed tennis outside of the court. Now, they lived in Compton. Very, very rough neighborhood, right? Very, very rough neighborhood. And he told his daughters, his young daughters, to walk home in Compton. But that was tough love. That was training them. That was teaching them discipline. So maybe, and think about this now, obviously, some people don't rate Max Verstappen. I don't get that, but cool. Look what Serena and Venus went on to achieve. Look what Max Verstappen's gone on to achieve. Maybe that, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm just putting it out there. But it's quite compelling that both parents decided to do this tough love tactic, which possibly traumatized their children. Possibly did. I know I would feel that way, right? But at the same time, they did not want that to happen again. So they listened, they locked in, they focused. They wanted to become the best versions of themselves possible. So maybe that's what it takes. Maybe that's what it takes, right? Even Anthony Hamilton. We love Anthony Hamilton. He will say to Lewis, cool, everyone's breaking here, you're going to break a bit further. At first, Lewis was like, well, Dad, how am I going to break? I'm going to crash. He was like, no, you're breaking here. You're going to learn not to crash. You're going to break from 10 meters beyond the point where everyone else is breaking. That's where you break. So yeah, I think with Max Verstappen, obviously his dad was his manager. He managed his career, trained him, everything. So Max, when it comes to racing, takes from Jos. You know, his attitude, desire to win, that all comes from Jos and how he raised him. Brutally. Not brutally like that, but brutally in terms of, if you don't achieve what I want you to, that's it. He didn't speak to him for a week after that moment when he made him walk home. That is traumatic for a child, but at the same time, that child will never want that to happen again. But Max's mum is the calm side of Max. There's no doubt about that. And I feel like that's what balances Max somewhat. And you know what validates that? Ever since Jos Verstappen, like Christian Horner said, should take a step back and not be in the garage as much, Max Verstappen has somewhat matured. He's changed his outlook somewhat. Obviously, the racing, that's embedded in who he is. He's never going to change his racing style unless he's forced to. And good luck with that, because he'll probably just leave Formula One. But in terms of his character and who he is and how he sees things, with Jos not being there day to day, I feel like he's becoming his own man and seeing things the way he wants to. And obviously his mum is a massive influence in his life too. And maybe he speaks to his mum more now. And she has more of a role in, not in helping him see things, but in speaking to him, and he's taking more advice from her. Because he's definitely changed somewhat. But there's no doubt in my mind that Max Verstappen's mother, Sophie Kampen, is the calm side of Max Verstappen.